So more and more of our lives are now online, right? We're doing more with our Google accounts, with Facebook, with Instagram, with LinkedIn. And I think there's a lot of ignorance around what happens if you become incapacitated, what happens when you pass away, what happens to these accounts. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to start sharing our slides. So welcome everybody. By the way, we had a huge turnout for this. I see a lot of people signed in, so we can clearly know that this is a topic that people are concerned about. So the topic today, the official title, we call it Digital Footprints Beyond Life, a Blueprint for Safeguarding Your Digital Afterlife. That's what I'm going to lead you through here today. I'm hoping my co-presenter, Michael Gilfix, can get his technical issues fixed. And if not, you're stuck with me, so I'm sorry. But we're going to have a lot of fun today. And I think it's kind of an interesting world because as you'll see as I go through this, there's some legal gray areas. And one thing I really want to hammer is this is not, you don't own your online accounts. You do not own them. So we have to be aware of what we need to do to protect them as best we can. You're licensing the rights to these accounts. You do not own them. That's a very important point. So I want you to ask yourself as we jump in here today, why did you join us here today? How much of my life is lived online, or how much of my life is lived and tracked in social media? How many photos or videos or memories do I have saved on my Facebook account, my Apple account, my Instagram account? How much online banking do I do that is all through my email? And what happens to my accounts or my followers? Maybe you're an influencer, you have a lot of followers. What happens if I become incapacitated? And of course, what happens when I die to all these accounts? A lot of people put a lot of time. How many hours have you put into your social media accounts to share, to build followers if you are an influencer, if you have a large audience? And what happens if something happens to you? So that's what we're talking about here today. We just don't want you to have your head in the sand. That is the key. Because if your head is in the sand and you don't do anything, I can promise you, you're going to have massive, massive problems. So there are some amazing steps we can take to at least minimize the chance that there's a disruption, because life happens. We get sick, we get into an accident. We've probably heard of celebrities where something happens. What happens to their online accounts? If you have 1 million Instagram followers, what happens if you're out of it for a while? Who can step in and manage it? What happens if you are after you pass away, if you have a lot of business tied into this? So we're going to talk about that. And I see some people are raising hands for questions. Enter your questions in the Q&A function, and I'm going to try to get to those at the end. Or if they are relevant, I'll try to get to some during the presentation, but please write them in the Q&A function, and I'll do my best to answer them there. So we're going to go, what are the key topics we're going to talk about here today? Well, let's go into that as well. We're going to talk about a few different subjects. So one, from the legal side, we are an estate planning law firm. So how do you designate? We're going to talk about what is a digital executor, digital power of attorney. How do you designate that person in that role? What do you need to do? Because that's really, really important. Another key step, how do you track and login and password information? I'm going to talk about why that's so important. It's not just about naming someone in your documents. There's another step, because you don't want to have someone stuck trying to deal with Google's back office. And then I'm going to do a deep dive into key social media platforms, what you need to do for Facebook, for Instagram, for Gmail, Google. That also includes YouTube, full, and LinkedIn. So we're going to keep going through here. And what are the steps you have to take right now to make sure that your digital afterlife is covered and that your accounts can be covered if you're out of it? And I always have to point out, this is for educational purposes, this is not legal advice. This is meant to inform you, and this does not create an attorney-client relationship. You have to work with us for that. And a good question, I'm already seeing some questions like, what about if I own online books or things like that? We're going to do our best to cover that. Some of this is a bit of a gray area that you're going to see, which is a little bit odd. The best advice we can give is just don't die, and definitely don't lose your password or passwords. If you fail at either of these, all bets are off. Kidding. I'm kidding, as I say here. Well, I'm sort of kidding. So before we jump into all this, I just want to introduce you to our firm. For those of you who don't know us, I think many of you do. I am Mark Gilfix. I am a partner at Gilfix and Lepole Associates. We've been in the Bay Area for over 40 years in California. We serve clients throughout California. We're a multi-generational team. We have served literally thousands and thousands of clients, ranging from everyday hardworking middle-class families to CEOs, celebrities, pro athletes, and everybody in between. And we've saved people hundreds of millions of dollars over the years in unnecessary taxes. And our goal is to provide extraordinary value and peace of mind. And we want to help you build that, be part of that team, and to build that comprehensive plan that includes your physical assets, your financial assets, your real estate. Also, let's talk about your digital assets. And we're very proud of where we've been featured. I appear on the radio a lot. We appear on TV. We've been featured in the Wall Street Journal, USA Today. So we know what we're talking about on the estate planning side. But the digital planning side is always evolving. And so this is offered to really share that with you. So let's jump in. A blueprint for safeguarding your digital afterlife. What is a digital executor? Or what is a digital power of attorney? So I just want to make the point that there are new laws in California that allow you to name a digital executor or to give access. There's a new law that was passed just a few years ago that grants the person naming your documents the ability to work with tech companies to get access to your online accounts. There was previously this weird disconnect in the law where you could authorize someone to step in, but that was if they stepped in to access your digital accounts, they were violating federal laws. They were basically considered hackers under federal law, even if state law allowed them to go in. So now I think that's been resolved a bit. So you definitely want to do your best to name someone in these documents. I'm going to talk about what these roles are, because the key here is you need up-to-date documents. You need documents that address these specific rules. If you have an old trust or an old will or an old power of attorney, you haven't updated it for a while, there are many reasons you need to talk to us to update it. But one of those reasons, aside from making sure the right people are named, is to make sure that your documents address digital assets and online account access. So what do I mean here by digital executor? What are we talking about here? So a digital executor is a person designated to manage and distribute someone's digital assets in the event of their incapacity or death. And now in California, we have the revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, the RUFADAA, try to say that 5 times fast. And this is legislation that California adopted just a few years ago that allows Californians to name an agent who can disclose information like account passwords to a designated beneficiary and can even transfer control of digital assets like a Bitcoin wallet to a named heir. Now, we're not talking about cryptocurrency today. We're going to have another webinar about that. I've written articles about cryptocurrency and what you need to do about that. But the focus here is on how a digital executor, really all the other steps you have to take in addition to naming a digital executor, to make sure that your online life is covered. So it's not as simple as just hoping for the best. That's not a good thing. So how do you appoint a digital executor or a power of attorney? So you have to make sure that your estate planning documents, and this is actually should be your will, your trust, and your power of attorney, that they refer to the revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act, the RUFADAA, and your durable power of attorney for finances should also cover this. So just keep in mind, just as a refresher for many of you, but your will, your living trust, and whenever you prepare a living trust, you should have a living trust, not just a will. If you just have a will, that's a problem. But whenever we prepare a living trust, we also prepare what we call a pour-over will. So your trust directs where your assets go. It can avoid the courts. A will is there just to cover assets that can't really be titled in a trust. It says, hey, these assets should go in my trust. It's called a pour-over will. But that's also where we want to address this, because digital assets you can't really title in your trust. So it's really important that the will that's prepared alongside your trust references online accounts and this new law. But that only comes into play after you pass away. And I'm going to talk about, as we go through specific online accounts, why it might not be enough. It's very challenging and painful to work with tech companies to try to get access to someone's account after they pass away. But when you're alive, let's say you're out of it and someone needs to get access to your account, well, that's where your durable power of attorney for finances comes in. Because again, your will only comes in after you pass away. So if you're incapacitated for a while and you haven't given your named representative information about how to access your accounts, well, they need to make sure that you have the right language in your durable power of attorney that addresses digital accounts. And they can use that, in theory, go to tech companies and get some access. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than not having that. But I'm going to talk in other videos or later here about why it's so important to make sure you save your login and password information in a super secure way, so your loved ones and named agents can step in and manage these accounts if you are out of it for a while. But you want to make sure they have the legal authorization. So again, how do they do that? That is through the digital executor and the power of attorney. So if it's been a while since you updated your documents, talk to us. Guildfix.com. We can help make sure your overall estate plan is put into place. We can make sure that we have the right language in your documents. And without this, it can be an absolute nightmare for someone you name to access your online accounts or get access or help you out. It can be a huge pain. So we want to make sure you're really well set up. So of course, contact us if you have questions, but make sure that you have this language in your documents. And if you've done it in the last couple of years with us, that language is there. If it's been a number of years, more than like 5 years or so, almost certainly this language isn't there because it wasn't even law in California till recently. So really important to make sure you appoint a digital executor and a power of attorney who has the power to access your online accounts. So you can contact us if you have questions and want to meet with us about that. Moving on to the next topic. The blueprint for safeguarding your digital afterlife, the critical importance of keeping track of login and password information. How can you do that? Now, this is a really tricky area because we're all worried about getting hacked, right? We are all worried about bad actors getting access to accounts. It happens to sophisticated people. We have very sophisticated clients who've gotten hacked. And we see stories in the news all the time about that. So we have to be super careful about how we keep track of this. But on the flip side, if our loved ones and our named agents, you need a core estate plan. You need a revocable living trust, a durable power of attorney as part of your financial estate plan. In both your living trust and your power of attorney, if you're out of it, you are authorizing a legal representative to step in. The trust allows them to manage your major assets. The power of attorney lets them manage your day-to-day financial assets. But how are they going to deal with your online accounts? Yeah, sure, these documents, if we have the right language in them addressing digital assets, can technically give them the ability to, if they don't have login information, to contact a tech company to maybe get access. But that is a long and painful process. So what we recommend is that you have a way for the people named to know how to get access to your accounts. Now, this is a gray area legally, so I don't want to encourage anybody to violate the terms of service with an online tech company. But just to say, the reality is, if you're out of it, the people you've named to step in for you in your estate plan, your trust, your power of attorney, they need to know what online accounts you have. Ideally, they really should have access to your loved ones, and people you trust should have access to log in emergencies. Because think about how many bank accounts go through your Gmail account or your Yahoo Mail account or whatever it is. So I'm going to talk about some key ways you can do that. So let's jump in to some specific tools and some specific recommendations. So regardless, again, of the legal documents you have, it's so important to keep track. This is for you too, by the way. It's not just for the named agents. We all should keep track of this. Because again, even if you name someone or give someone the right powers in your power of attorney, your living trust, your will, it's a lot easier for them to step in if they have this information. Because believe me, this is not a high priority for tech companies to help out authorized representatives to get access to accounts. So ideally give them access ahead of time. So why is it important? Because again, what if you're incapacitated? Who's going to step in and manage? What if you have a big social media based business? And what if you're an Instagram influencer or you have a bunch of followers on LinkedIn? You don't want that account to just go dark or go unupdated for a while. You don't want people to miss out, or you don't want to miss out on potential inbound opportunities if someone's contacting you. There's so many reasons why it's so important to keep what we call a digital inventory. So here we go. So 4 steps to keep your digital and social media inventory. Create a list. This does not have to include any sensitive information. Go through all your accounts. What email accounts do you have? What social media accounts do you have? What cloud storage accounts do you have? What online banking accounts do you have? Banking is a little different in the sense that if you have a good durable power of attorney for finances and you're out of it, the person you name, they can work with a bank to get access. They don't need online access. But cloud storage, social media, email, you got to make sure that you have track of this. So if you're out of it, and certainly after you pass away, someone you trust or you named in your legal documents can get access. So you need to securely save your usernames, your passwords, your 2-factor authentication information, seed phrases, security questions. How do you keep all of this. So this is a really tricky question. There's no right or wrong way. Well, there's some definite wrong ways to do this. The wrong way is to store it in just an online document. You don't want it to be so if a hacker gets access to one account or your email, that they can get access to all your login information, because then you've given them the keys to the kingdom. I've seen some stories recently about how dangerous it is if someone steals your iPhone and they get your 4 to 6 digit code to get in. If they know what they're doing, they can really quickly change all of your accounts and lock you out. So you have to be super careful about how you save these, but there are some best practices. So one way to save your login and password information, I'll share the slide again in a second, is you simply keep physical copies. You hand write it down, or you type it down and print it out and delete the document, and you keep it in a super safe place. You keep it in a safe deposit box. You keep it in a safe. I've had some clients who create their own codes. So they write all the stuff down, but they have their own code that only their family knows how to decipher the code. So they don't actually write down their passwords, but you need to know their family specific code for what these words actually mean in plain English. The bottom line is, the thing about that is it's not online. A hacker can't get access to it. The downside is you have to update it all the time. And what if the physical copy gets lost? Some other tools that are really interesting now, and I've heard pluses and minuses, but there's always password managers. So there's LastPass. I'm going to talk about those in just a minute. LastPass, 1Password, Dashlane. The good thing there is you just need one access point. So you can keep just the access to the password manager in a super safe place, in a safe deposit box, or in some other place. And everything can be kept there. The downside is that, someone gets access to that account, again, they have the keys to the kingdom, or somehow they get hacked. I think they're pretty secure, but I have heard stories of some password management companies getting hacked, at least on the crypto side, with some seed phrases. So be very careful with that, but that might be the best option. You have to do your own due diligence of what you feel safe about. And what if someone loses access to that one account? Then you're really in trouble. If everything's stored in a LastPass and your loved ones can't get access to the LastPass, well, that's trouble. Or you can save it as an encrypted file. So kind of similar to LastPass or 1Password, you keep a list that you create and you encrypt that file yourself, and you give your loved ones the ability or give them the password to access that account. Sorry, to access that document. Now, the downside there is, are you keeping that up to date? What if a hacker gets access to that document? But I think the first step is inform your digital executor or the backup trustees how to access these. You need to make sure they know that you have this list and where you're keeping all these passwords, or how to access the LastPass or the password manager that you have. Step 4, update these regularly. Change your passwords, of course, regularly. Update the list as you open and close accounts, as you change passwords. So again, the 4 steps for keeping your digital and social media inventory in case of emergency: 1, create the list, make sure it's there. 2, securely save the username and password information. Maybe that's a physical copy you keep in a safe. Maybe it's using a password manager. Maybe it's an encrypted file on your computer. Maybe it's your own family code, where to decipher the weird scribbles you have on a page, you need to know your family code, that if I wrote down the letter A, it actually add 15 letters to that, and that's the actual password. I don't know. I'm making this up on the spot. But you need to do this, and you need to inform your loved ones, your digital executor, your backup trustees of how to access this if needed. Of course, you have to update this regularly. So really, really important. Now, a bonus tip. Let's talk about another tool that we've just learned about for password managers, and this is maybe a reason to consider these. Now, again, do your own due diligence to make sure that you feel good about these, but Bitwarden, 1Password, LastPass, Dashlane, these are by no means the only programs available for this. There are other password managers. These are just a few that I was able to find some information about. They all have ways where you can automatically designate emergency contacts or share information with trusted family members when you set up the account. So Bitwarden, you can designate a contact for the Bitwarden vault and decide the access level and emergency access. 1Password, you can create a family account with up to 5 family members. You can share log information, credentials with family members. You can store physical and digital copies of emergency kits with account information there. LastPass has an emergency access designation, a contact who can request access to your passwords after you die. There's something nice. I don't know much about the LastPass tool, but there's something nice if you say, hey, look, this person, if they show proof that they were named in my documents, my power of attorney, my trust, then work with them on this. because then there's another layer of security. They have to show legal documents to get access. Dashlane, you can create a secure note with credentials and share that later. So the bottom line is, maybe password managers are the best tool here. Again, I'm not an expert on online security and things like that, but this is something I'm looking into personally, just to make sure all my accounts are secure. But we really have to make sure that all of our online accounts are tracked, that again, you have language for digital assets in your power of attorney and your living trust. But that gives people access in emergencies. It's also crucial to make sure your successor trustees, the people named your durable power of attorney document as well, that they know where to find that list of all your online accounts, and that you keep track of login information in a secure way, whether it's a physical copy somewhere, or if it's a super secure online copy with login needed, or through a password manager. So that is all really, really important stuff. And I hope that was very helpful. And of course, this all needs to be part of your comprehensive estate plan. You need to make sure that you have a recently created revocable living trust, recently created durable power of attorney that addresses this, and you have the right people named. So talk to us, gilfix.com, if you want to review all of that. We can meet with your existing client. Let's make sure you have the right people named, you have this language in the documents, and let's make sure we're all on top of this. Let's transition to the next section of this presentation. And again, if you have questions, enter in the Q&A function. I'm going to try to get to those at the end. If you're watching on YouTube, leave comments with questions. We'll get to those as well. Please comment, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. It's growing every day. We see new subscribers, and we're really proud of that. So let's jump into the next topic. Safeguarding your digital afterlife, a deep dive into social media and other key online platforms, what you need to know to make sure that your online accounts at some of the major online providers are as safe as they possibly can be in the event of your incapacity, and certainly upon your passing. So we're going to talk about Instagram, we're going to talk about Facebook, we're going to talk about Apple, we're going to talk about LinkedIn. I can't cover everything because every company has its own policies, but we're going to cover as much as we can. So before we jump in, I just want to set the stage here. So really all online platforms have policies or processes for the management of your account after you pass away. But I want you to understand something that's really, really important. One, these policies change over time. So everything I'm presenting here is as current as we understand, but these policies can change. New tools emerge, new policies emerge. Every year or so, it seems like the policies change a little bit. This will give you a good overview. And really importantly, you do not own your online social media accounts. Just because you have 1 million followers on Instagram, or 200,000 followers on TikTok, or 50,000 followers on LinkedIn, you can't technically sell that. You technically can't transfer that according to the terms of service, and you really technically can't bequest it to someone. You are licensing the right. You are renting that space. So it creates these weird, it's sort of a legal gray area, but it's really important to understand that. And that's why it's so critical to make sure that you have all the right tools in place, and that you have, again, that you've appointed digital executor in your will and your trust, and that your durable power of attorney has language around digital assets. But there are other steps you can take with these online social media accounts that can also provide some further safeguards, and at least make sure that after you're gone, someone can step in and manage them. And you really have to customize these for every account. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to dealing with your digital afterlife. Every single platform has its own policies. So let's talk about Facebook. I'm going to share the slide here about Facebook. So raise your hand if you have a Facebook account. You can do it physically, or you can do it in the Zoom account. Now, for those of you who have raised your hands, I see a lot of digital hands going up, or just raise your hands physically. How many of you have done anything about your Facebook account for what happens when you pass away? Have you done anything for that? So probably fewer hands, right? You can put your hand down if you haven't done anything. If you have, but that's great. I'm going to show you what you need to do. So the Facebook tool, I see a few people raise their hands. Yeah. So what you can do with Facebook, so you cannot transfer ownership of your Facebook page to someone else. It's technically not allowed. What you can do is you can convert it to a memorialization account. where it sort of gets locked into place as it is, and it says the language changes to make it clear that it's a memorial account. No new content can really be posted. It's very, other people can I think comment on your posts, but no one can post new content. How do you do this? Well, it's 5 steps that you need to take for Facebook to manage your digital afterlife. So to appoint a legacy contact, you go to settings and privacy in your Facebook account on the top right. I would share a screen, but I'm always worried I'm going to share like my own login information by accident. So I did this earlier today to make sure I had it in place. But take a step. It's not too hard. If you're watching on your desktop, you go to the top right. I think it's the same on the Facebook app, but you go to settings and privacy, you tap settings, you then go to general profile settings, and then you click memorialization settings. It sounds easy, but it's always hard to get to these, right? They don't make it easy. Again, this is not a priority for Facebook. Facebook wants more users. They don't want to help people out with what happens when you pass away. You can see by how cumbersome this is that this is not a priority for them. So again, go to settings, privacy, tap settings, go to general profile settings, then you click memorialization settings, then you type in a friend's name. You can choose a friend and you name them as a legacy contact. You click add. I think they are notified via Facebook, but it's a really good idea to tell them as well. So that's a step 5. So step 1, go to settings, privacy. 2, tap settings. 3, general profile settings and memorialization settings. 4, select who you want to name. You can change this anytime, by the way. Add them. 5, let them know, your friend or family member know that they're named as a legacy contact. Now, very importantly, if you pass away or if they're notified you've passed away, the legacy contact cannot log into your account. But if you give them permission, they can download a copy of what you shared. They can update your profile just to convert it to a memorial. They can't do other updates, but they can convert it to a memorial, or they can request the removal of your account. So really important step. Now, even if you don't do this, if a family member presents a death certificate to Facebook, there are ways to delete an account. But if you want it to stay up, then, well, this is what you have to do. So here's what I did. So I did this earlier today, memorialization contact, and I named my sister, Shauna. If you're watching this, or if you watch this later, I named you as my legacy contact, Shauna Gerson-Gilfix. You should follow her on Instagram, by the way. She has a great Instagram page. Oh, and by the way, follow me on follow our Gilfix Law YouTube channel, but also I have a Mark Gilfix YouTube channel if you want to follow. And hopefully nothing will happen to me, and Shauna won't have to step in to manage any of these accounts anytime soon. But very easy to do once you get to the right page. And notice I did click data archive permission to allow my legacy contact to download a copy of what I've saved and shared on Facebook, including posts, photos, videos, and other information. So she won't get access to my private Facebook messages. Not that I use Facebook that much, but she has the ability to download my Facebook information, everything I've made public. So that's kind of a nice thing. Now, I just want to make a point that if you have an active Facebook page and it's related to your business, you might not want to have loved ones let Facebook know right away that you've passed away. Maybe you want them to keep managing the account. Facebook's not looking that closely to see if you passed away. So that goes back to the importance earlier in this video or in a separate video of keeping that digital inventory, making sure your loved ones have access to accounts. So if you have a business that's run through Facebook, if it's a business account, you have to make sure people managing your business have that information. But if it's a personal account where you do a lot of business through it, if you're an influencer on Facebook or and you use that to reach out to followers for business opportunities, well, maybe you don't want to let Facebook know that something happened to you. You just want someone to step in and manage it for you. So Facebook, hope this was super helpful. Now let's go on to our next platform, which is Instagram. So how many people here have Instagram accounts? Raise your hand. Or I mean, I can't see physically. You can raise it physically, or I see few people raising their hands in Zoom. And if you're watching live on YouTube or watching recording, hey, comment if you have an Instagram account, and raise your hand if you have ever even thought about what happens to your Instagram account when you kick the bucket. So I'm going to share some good news, well, not so good news about Instagram. So Instagram, even though Instagram is connected to Facebook, they don't really have a tool for legacy contacts. It's kind of odd. Now, if you're a Instagram influencer, you have millions of followers, this is kind of a conundrum. What happens when you pass away if you have millions of followers and hundreds of thousands of followers? Well, it's not really clear. maybe an argument for not letting Instagram know that you've passed away. Let your business associates take it over. And there are cases where Instagram influencers obviously have passed away and they've been converted. So what happens? If you pass away, really just two options. Once Instagram knows, and how would they know? Well, you would, your loved ones or representatives would send them a death certificate or show public records you passed away. Two options: it can be converted to a memorialization account, or it can be deleted. That's it. It cannot be really, nothing new can be posted. No one can log into a memorialized account. It's just there. So you'll see there are some memorialized accounts for some celebrities. And there's a Bollywood celebrity with like tens of millions of followers who passed away last year. His account's still up. It just says memorialized. So people can still comment, but no new posts can be put up on Instagram. So again, if you're an Instagram influencer, should you tell them? I think that's an open question. I mean, legally speaking, of course, you should, but your license technically is over when you pass away. Again, when you sign up for Instagram or Facebook or all these, you are getting a license. You don't own your profile. They own your profile. You just have the right to use it in very plain English. So Instagram, there aren't really great options here. There are other ways. Now, if it's a business account, it's a little bit different. This wouldn't happen because the business might keep going. But just be careful with Instagram. You need to let your family know your login information, or let your digital representatives know, but know that they can't really do much other than converting to a memorialized account or delete, which I suppose in Facebook is similar, but at least in Facebook, you can designate in an automated way, you can designate someone to step in. Instagram, there's really no way to predetermine who would step in to manage your account. So that is Instagram. So again, what if you're an online influencer? What if you're an Instagram influencer and you have lots of followers, you have businesses set up around your account? Well, if you're incapacitated, make sure your named agents or the people running your business have the ability to access your account. I know many influencers have outside management companies doing it anyway, but you really need to make sure that you keep track of login information so your authorized representatives can keep it going while you're out of it. And just as a side note, if you do have a business that is really run based on your large following on social media, this is why you want to get them on your email list. Really encourage them to get off of these platforms, to follow you, so you get them to give you their email addresses or other ways. So if your Instagram account gets shut down or something happens to you, your business, your family can take over and still have a relationship with your followers. So that's Instagram. Try to get people's contact information as much as you can if you have a lot of followers, and make sure people you trust have the ability to access accounts. Let's talk about Google and Gmail and your digital afterlife. What can you do for your Google, Gmail accounts? And this actually relates to YouTube as well, if you're incapacitated. So Google, and actually, by the way, raise your hand or comment if you use Gmail or Google accounts for a big part of your life. If you're watching this on YouTube, right, see people raising their hands. Or raise them at home. I can't see you, but I'll just assume a lot of people raising their hands. Raise your hand if you've done anything about your legacy contact, or who can step in an automated way to deal with your account if you don't. If a couple of people have done it. Okay, so I see a few people raising their hands. And if you're watching this on YouTube, well, by definition, you're an active YouTube user. Have you done anything about this? So again, Gmail, Google, Google Cloud, YouTube, all under the Google family of companies. So let's talk about what you need to do with Google and what you can do at least to make sure someone can step in and manage your Google accounts. And again, I have to take a step back to say it's also critically important you have an up-to-date, repeating myself, an up-to-date durable power of attorney that references digital assets, and that you have an up-to-date revocable living trust and pour over will that also addresses digital assets, and you have the right people named in those. Because when push comes to shove, if legal documents are needed, you need to make sure the right people are named in those accounts, and that they have the authorization, if needed, to contact Google and say, hey, I have updated estate planning documents, give me access. But of course, aside from that, you should keep track of login information as well. But this is kind of the backup to all that. And talk to us, guildfix.com, if you need to address your estate plan. We can make sure it's up to date and all your assets are covered. So let's talk about Google again. So what do you need to do? So Google, it's really, we talked about in Facebook, it's a legacy manager. For Google, it's all about your inactive account manager. So if you don't log into your Google account for 24 months, Google will classify it as inactive. Now, I believe they do not delete the account, but they will delete content if no one steps in for it. But you can decide what happens if your account goes inactive via the inactive account manager. I'm going to give you 3 steps that you need to take. And again, I would show you on my screen, but I'm always worried I'm going to accidentally share some sensitive information. But it's really not that hard. I was able to do that today. So you go to myaccount.google.com, myaccount.google.com, you tap data and privacy, and then you scroll down and you go to make a plan for your digital legacy. And you can name contacts and you can designate what happens to your data. You don't log in for many, many months. So I just went to the page earlier today. So again, it's under data and privacy, and you go down, you have to scroll down. Again, Google, this is not a high priority, right? They want new users. They want people who are actively paying them. They're not so interested in helping out people's accounts after they pass away, but they'll do it begrudgingly. And you scroll down and go to make a plan for your digital legacy, and you can click on what happens to your data. That's also where you can delete your Google account. Google doesn't want to make that easy, of course. So for Google, it's really important to make a plan to go to this section of the Google website. Sorry, when you're logged into Google, by the way, to go to the data and privacy thing, scroll down to make a plan for your digital legacy. And that's where you can follow some of these options. Really, really important, because otherwise, if nobody accesses your account for 24 months, all your data might be deleted. Also critical, though, to keep track of your Google login information for your trusted agents. So this is if nobody logs in. Now, if you give your representatives the login information, they can step in and manage it. But keep in mind, they can then see all of your emails. They can see everything. You might not want everything to be public, but really important to get this into place. And again, really important to have updated estate planning documents, revocable living trust, and a durable power of attorney to make sure that if push comes to shove, they can't access it, they can use these documents to contact Google to get access. Because again, how many of us do online banking where constantly forget how to log in, and all the information has to come back through Google, your Gmail or your Yahoo Mail, which is a different set of rules to reset the password and get access. So let's make sure that we're all up to date there. And again, for Google, if you're incapacitated but not deceased, so let's say it's not an issue that that you have logged in recently, but now you're out of it. Well, if you're incapacitated, you need to make sure that your loved ones have access and they have your login information. But if you don't have a plan, so by the way, if you don't do this and you don't have this inactive account setting, well, your family can contact Google and present, a death certificate and show they have power of attorney or show their name in the trust to close your accounts. So and sometimes they can get court ordered or work with Google to get some content from a deceased user's account, but much better, again, to plan ahead and name this person in the inactive account manager. Really, really important, but also critical to keep track of your login information in a very secure way, maybe using a password manager where your loved ones have access. So, because technically, again, you cannot leave a Google account to a loved one. Now, what about YouTube, by the way? Basically the same rules, because YouTube is part of Google. So what do you do for YouTube when you pass away? Well, it's the same set of rules. So it can become a legacy account, or it can become an inactive account. It can stay up. But there's a story recently about a YouTube channel, Technoblade, where this young guy had a huge number of followers and super sadly passed away from cancer. And his account got millions of followers right before he passed away, because he was kind of documenting his journey, and that account is still up. So again, it's a bit of a legal gray area where technically YouTube would say, well, the account's over, he passed away. But if other people have the ability to log in, I don't think it's their business to want to shut down popular channels, but it's really, really tricky. So if you are a YouTube influencer or an Instagram influencer, you may want to start side accounts that are in the name of a business. I'm not exploring that here, but that's a way where if something happens to you, well, it's a business that owns the account, so the business managers can step in. But it's a really tricky area. But the key is keep track of your accounts, make sure that your authorized representatives know how to log in a pinch, and make sure you have that updated power of attorney and updated pour over will and living trust, the right people named and with language about digital assets in them. Let's talk about Apple. So who here has an iPhone, or who here has a iCloud account or uses music with Apple? Yeah. So what do you do about your digital afterlife for Apple? I see a lot of people raising their hands. Now, fun fact, the image on the left is an actual screenshot of the iPhone homepage. It was like this for 9 months, many months. This is literally a screenshot of the iPhone. So I'm just going to take a moment to connect you with my personal history with Apple. Aside from being an Apple fan, I have an iPhone. That is me. I was the face of the iPhone homepage for many, many months. And in fact, this is maybe it's a humble brag, I don't know. But when I was in law school, I was doing acting and commercials and some TV stuff on the side. And I booked this commercial, but they flew me up to San Francisco and they didn't tell me anything about it. They just said, it's a product that you cannot tell anybody about this. And they didn't even tell me it was for Apple until the morning of. And we were filming the first videos introducing Siri to America. So if you watch the introduction to Siri, the video they played at the Apple keynote conference when they introduced it, and it was a commercial that I think tens of millions of people saw. The first person online using Siri was me, my small piece of Siri history, and I was the face of the iPhone homepage. So you see the running thing. So anyway, I'll stop talking about me. But you have Apple, right? So what do you do about Apple? Apple has legacy contacts. So again, I'm going to take a step back that it's really important that if you're incapacitated, your trusted loved ones know how to log in to your Apple account. And there have been some horror stories recently. This was, I think, in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, about people who have their iPhone stolen. That's not so terrifying. I mean, it sucks. But what's really terrifying is if someone films you entering your passcode on your iPhone and then they steal it, they can, if they're smart, within like 5 minutes, they can change all of your Apple settings and lock you out. And there's some horror stories there. So just be really careful about your 6-digit code. And we use Face ID, but if you're wearing a mask, it often doesn't work. So I find myself entering my code on my phone. So now I'm a lot more careful. Make sure it's a longer string of digits, not just the 4 digits. So aside from that, that's just a security tip. Let's go back to what you need to do to protect your Apple accounts after you're gone. And this is a little bit more tricky than Google and Instagram and Facebook. It's an interesting process. So in Apple, you can designate a legacy contact. What do you do? So it's from the settings on your iPhone, your iPad, your Mac, under the password and security setting. And now, if you name someone as a legacy contact, they can access your photos, your messages, your notes, your files, your apps, and your device backups without knowing your Apple ID or password. But, and we had a question about this, they cannot access movies, music, or books you've purchased. And I think that just goes to the licensing information. When you get those, you're licensing it to yourself. I haven't looked into that much. So again, maybe give them login information if you want your loved ones to be able to access your music, your online books and movies. Just have them log in without the legacy. But realistically, that can't happen. That can't last forever. So again, you do not own the content you are licensing from Apple or Google or these places. We have to keep in mind, you don't own it. Technically, maybe you own it, but it's not in perpetuity. You can't always transfer these. So it's really important to create that legacy contact. 3 steps for how to do that. How do you designate a legacy contact in Apple? I'm going to give you 3 steps right now. So you designate it from the settings on your iPhone, iPad, or iMac under password and security. So you go to password and security and you select legacy contact and you name them. Now you have to notify them. You have the option of notifying them via messages when you add them. And if they have to accept it. And if they accept it, they automatically, and this is kind of crazy, get a copy of a new 88-character access key stored in their Apple ID settings. It automatically goes to their Apple ID settings. And how do they access this 88-digit character access key if they need it, because they do need it to access your account later? Well, they can tap their name, then password and security, and then legacy contact. And they should have access to that 88-character code. They can also keep track of it safely separately. They don't have to rely on that. So when they get it, they can also just take a photo and keep that in a safe place, or write it down and keep it in a safe. That has to be super secure and super safe. After you pass away, what do? Well, your digital king must produce a death certificate along with this 88-character alphanumeric access key generated when you name them as a contact. So for Apple, you can name them, but maybe it's good or bad depending on your view of the security side of this. That the good thing is it's a little bit harder for someone to get access. You can't just name them and they get access. They have to have this super long 88-character alphanumeric key to get access to your account. But keep in mind, they don't get access to a lot of the music and movies you might have purchased. through Apple. So I emphasize again, you need to have that updated durable power of attorney, updated living trust, where you have the digital access language. And we can, of course, help you with that at guildfix.com if you want questions. But leave a comment here. If you're watching on YouTube as a recording or new, leave a comment if this is confusing or if it feels like, wow, these companies make this hard, right? They do not make it easy. Now, in fairness to them, it's a very tricky problem and it's not core to their business. But wow, every company has its own policies, but we want to do the best we can with your estate plan to give your representatives as much power as they absolutely can have. I'm going to spend just 1 minute on one more. So again, contact us if you have questions about this, guildfix.com. We can help you to go through your estate plan and make sure this is done, but make sure you have that list of account information, login information, make sure it's all safe in case you need it. Now, I want to share one more. We could go all day long on different platforms, but that's not the purpose here. It's to give you examples of what you need to do. So LinkedIn, what happens after you pass away for LinkedIn, and can you name someone to step in and oversee that? Well, not really. As of now, LinkedIn does not really have the ability to name a legacy contact. Really, your authorized representative, they have to be named in your as a digital executor in your revocable living trust and will. They can go to LinkedIn and say, hey, this person passed away. There's really two options. They can request to memorialize an account where it just becomes a memorial and nothing new can be done with the account. It's just there, or they can close it out. And if they are not authorized in your legal documents, well, someone can report that you've passed away, but it can really only be deleted at that point. So, not much can be done with LinkedIn after you pass away. It's really just memorial. Actually, when you look back at most of these online accounts, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you generally do have the option of converting them to memorial accounts or deleting them. That's really it. So if you want someone to be able to actively manage it, if you're a LinkedIn influencer, you got lots of followers, it's really tricky. Maybe you don't want anybody to let LinkedIn know that you've passed away and you want your representatives to continue to use your profile to drum up business. Now, technically, that's probably a violation of the license. So you'd have to they would shut you down if they found out. But it's really tricky. If you have a lot of business that's done through these online social media accounts, you have to realize, again, you do not own them. You are just licensing them. And if something happens to you, poof, they are generally gone and your loved ones might lose access. So we want to do the best we can to make sure that in an emergency, your loved ones can access these accounts and keep them going. Again, make sure they have access to login and password information. If they don't, that durable power of attorney for finances that references to online accounts might let them contact the company and get access, but really it's a challenging thing. So LinkedIn, and by the way, Twitter, first of all, good luck getting anybody at Twitter to respond to anything. That's a skeleton crew, and it is as of right now, this webinar, Twitter is an absolute mess from everything I've heard from an administrative side, but Twitter has no legacy contact, and you can contact them with death certificate information and they can shut down an account. But good luck getting any customer support from Twitter. So I hope that was helpful for LinkedIn. Now, I think the key is make sure all these accounts are updated, that you keep track of all of them. Your loved ones know what you'd want to happen with these accounts after you pass away. So now let's transition to the final topic, your digital afterlife. What are the critical steps that you need to take to sum this all up? What do we need to do to make sure our digital and online accounts are safe or incapacitated after we pass away? Let's go to some steps that we've outlined. So you need to update your estate plan. And I know I'm an estate planning lawyer, but this all connects, because if you don't have the right people authorized from a legal perspective, you don't have a bequest plan that goes over all your assets, this is all can be an absolute mess, even beyond the challenges that it already presents. You need to update your estate plan, update your revocable living trust, update your durable power of attorney. And this isn't what we've talked about here, but you need to update your advanced healthcare director. Just make sure people that you trust are named to step in for you, and make sure you've done sophisticated planning. If you have a larger estate, you need to talk to us about asset protection and tax planning. But even from a digital asset side, make sure your plan is up to date. And if it's been a few years since you addressed it, it may not have the right language addressing digital assets, and you might have the wrong people named. So again, contact us at guildfix.com if you want us to take a fresh look at that. Do you have the right people named? Step in. Do they even know that they have access as a legacy contact or anything like that to your accounts? Do they know where to get information about your accounts and where that list is? And again, this is the estate planning side of our practice. Well, we are estate planners. Think about not just your digital accounts. There might be a lot of value there. Maybe you've created businesses from your online accounts Where are those businesses going? And are you protecting assets from divorce and lawsuits for your kids? There are incredible things we can do from an estate planning perspective. So it's not just making sure your online accounts are covered. It's making sure your assets go where you want them to go. And take the steps we've outlined here. Again, you need to make a list of all your online accounts, store login and password information in a very secure place. You might want to consider using a password manager for this. And some of the password managers, LastPass, OnePass, have their own internal ways to designate, to give access to family members or representatives in a pinch. But each online account, we talked about Facebook, we talked about Instagram, we talked about Gmail and Google and YouTube, we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about Apple. Each one of these companies has their own policies around this. So take a fresh look. It's always good. Their policies change over time. So this was a snapshot when we presented this, but make sure you're taking a fresh look. And you can, of course, meet with us to coordinate all of your estate planning. This is all piece of the pie. Our online lives are increasingly part of our lives. So we want to make sure that your overall estate plan is really covered. If you have a kid with a disability, you don't want assets going to them. You want to go into special needs trust. If you're worried about divorce and lawsuits for your kids, we need to set up a dynasty trust for them. So many other pieces to the puzzle, and we can be part of that team. So we have 6 attorneys here. We'd love to be part of that. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the Gilfix Law YouTube channel, I'm starting my own YouTube. I've started posting videos under just Mark Gilfix. If you look up Mark Gilfix, I have a YouTube channel there. Subscribe. I'm just starting to build it, just getting started. I posted a couple of videos like a few years ago, but now I'm really going to put a lot of short form videos to give you great advice. So subscribe to the Gilfix Law channel, subscribe to the Mark Gilfix channel. You can easily find me. Just Google my name on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like this, comment. If you have questions, I have a bunch of good questions. I'm going to get to those in just a second. Now, I have just a couple final points before we end our discussion here today. So should you meet with us? Should you meet with an estate planning attorney? Well, so I know we talked about different specific rules for different platforms, but if it's been a long time since you updated your estate plan, it's really crucial. It has digital Executor digital asset language in it, that it reflects current California law or current law wherever you live. Has it been more than 3 years since you reviewed it? You need to take a fresh look because it likely doesn't have that information. And you have the right people named in your documents to step in and oversee this. Are they consistent with the legacy contacts for your Facebook account or for your Apple account? Have you coordinated your digital estate plan with your general estate plan? Are you concerned about just taxes generally? I know that's not really central to this, but you might be confused about estate taxes, capital gains taxes, property taxes. We are experts in all those areas. And you want to protect your digital assets or what you've built around your digital assets. Protect your memories, but most importantly, protect your home and your other assets for future generations. Talk to us at gilfix.com. We want to be part of that team. We want to plan together. We work with thousands of clients throughout the state of California, from San Diego to Wairika. If you're in California, we can help you. So easy to take action. If you want to contact us, it's gilfix.com. If you want us to meet with, you can also enter your contact information in the Q&A function, and we'll reach out to you to set a meeting. But this webinar and this presentation especially is much more just about empowering you with what you need to know about digital assets. But we have to make sure that your core estate plan is up to date, because if that's not there and there's any issues with these accounts, nobody can access them. So, if you name a legacy and they're not around anymore, and you don't have an up-to-date power of attorney, or you don't have an up-to-date living trust, and you don't have the right language in that, it could be an absolute nightmare for your family to get any access to your online accounts. So contact us if you have questions. If you're an existing client, let's take a fresh look at your plan, make sure the right people are named, make sure you're addressing asset protection issues. You can call us 650-493-8070. Subscribe to our Gilfix Law YouTube channel. It's growing every day. We're just getting started. And subscribe to the Mark Gilfix YouTube channel. I'm doing basically mostly short form 60-second videos there. They give you quick tips and other things there. So I have a lot of good questions, and I'm sorry Michael Gilfix couldn't join us today. He had a technical issue, so you were stuck with me, I know. But if you want to say hi to Mike, you can send that in the notes. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. He's a little annoyed that his computer wasn't working right, but I hope you got a lot out of this. It's just so important to stay on top of it. So again, keep track of your online accounts. Make sure your trust, your power of attorney are up to date. The right people are named, has language around digital assets, and make sure you're taking a fresh look every year or so about the policies for your online accounts at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Google, and Apple, because the policies change over time. But hopefully in this video, you had some step-by-step instructions for what you can do with each individual account and some high-level accounts. Keep track of this. and it's about to get even crazier with AI and all the new accounts we're going to have. We're only getting started. So stay tuned, subscribe to our channel, like this video if it was useful, or leave any questions or comments if you'd like us to address those. I'm going to get to some questions now. We had some really good questions. So one question is, I have a list of hundreds of websites I visited or visited in the past, each with a password. Can I somehow cancel the websites I no longer access or cut down my long lists? They have to leave. So they're going to look for the recording. So you're not watching this live. So the more accounts you have, the more you have to keep track of. But most online accounts, if nobody accesses them that for a long time, they will get shut down. But if you want your loved ones to shut them down, or if you want them to go away, either you have to go in and cancel them, or you have to give your loved ones instructions for going in and either canceling them, or if they don't have log information for how they can present a death certificate, to get an account taken down. So again, the crucial importance of making sure your loved ones know what accounts you have, but it has to be secure. And I am not an expert on cybersecurity. Do your own research on how to keep those passwords secure. Again, I think password managers may be the right tool. Should I be concerned about text messages? From Cheryl. So text messages, that different context. So I'm sure through the Apple program, I don't think that people get access to all of your text messages. They only get access to other information, but I'm not sure what the rules are around text messages. Another question about, what about my online banking accounts? So online banking there's two ways to access those. One is obviously just by logging in with the password information and the login information. Often they require two-factor authentication. You should have two-factor authentication turned on for any banking accounts. So when you log in, it should require that you either use like Google Authenticator or at least a text to your phone to log in. That way, it's harder for a bad actor to get in. That also makes it harder for your loved ones to get into your bank accounts. But I'd say the trade-off is good to keep it more secure. Now, here's why. If it's a bank account, you notice I didn't spend much time on what do I do to designate people who can step in for my bank accounts, because we don't have to worry about that online. Banks are bound by your durable power of attorney and your trust. So if you name a successor trustee and an attorney, in fact, in your durable power of attorney document, you are saying, if I'm incapacitated or after I pass away, I am giving these people the ability to oversee my financial affairs, and banks will accept those. It's independent of their online access, but banks will accept those to give your named representative the ability to step in, and if you're still alive but incapacitated, to manage those accounts on your behalf, or to make sure they're properly distributed as part of the trust administration process. So banking is a little different, and that's where just having an up-to-date estate plan, updated power of attorney, updated revocable living trust. I know I'm repetitive here. You'll be covered there. Don't worry too much about your online banking accounts. And in fact, maybe that's an argument for keeping that information even extra secure. There have been situations for our clients where someone's incapacitated, they don't want to have to go to the bank and deal with all the paperwork. They just want to make sure bills are still paid. That's your choice, but security trumps everything else. Let's make sure your account stays secure. So wonderful questions from people. I think I'm going to wrap this up. We went a long time. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, subscribe to the Guildfix Law YouTube channel. Reach us at guildfix.com if you want to meet with us in person. But I hope you got a lot out of this. Share this video if it was useful. We're going to probably break this up into sub videos as well on our YouTube channel. So stay tuned. We have a lot more free content going. And I hope everybody's staying safe, sane, and healthy. And I hope we get a chance to work with you and your family directly.